What's up, Doug with Deanie in the Garage. Today I've got a bunch of tips and tricks for you. How to change your ball joints on a Jeep. This Jeep specifically is a 2001 Jeep Grand Cherokee WJ. This is very, very similar for your XJs, your ZJs, your TJs, your YJs, anything with a Dana 30 front end. Your brake setups will be a little different. TJ, ZJ, XJ all have the same brake setups. The WJ has something different. A few other little things, but these tips and tricks are generally going to be applicable. Now the first tip I'm going to give you is, if you're doing your ball joints, maybe consider doing your tie rods, doing your wheel bearing, possibly even your brakes, because you're going to have all that stuff off to get to this anyway. If you're a viewer of the channel, you know that I jimmy jammed some new ball joints, tie rod ends, brakes and stuff over the past few months, so kind of doing this backwards, but whatever. We're going to slam that stuff off, and I went out and I bought a ball joint kit. Alright, this is a ball joint kit. If you're not familiar, you use this big C-clamp looking jimmy jammer and some collection of these doohickeys to press your old ones out and your new ones in. I'll show you exactly how to do that. This is the Astro kit. I went ahead and bought myself one. I splurged, I indulged, I treated myself. I've been renting them for years. The ones you rent from the auto parts store, you give them a $250 deposit, which you do get back. The problem is, man, all sorts of monkeys with toolboxes have been jimmy jamming on those things for years, and a lot of times they're hooped to the point where it makes the job a lot more difficult. So Deanie in the Garage, coming up in the world. We got our own ball joint kit now. So, like I said, this is going to be more tips and tricks than a detailed how-to. If you want a really good how-to on WJs, Eric over at South Main Auto has a step-by-step. Without further ado, let's get into this project. First thing you got to do is jimmy jam your caliper and rotor off. All right, once you get your brakes and your calipers and your rotors and everything off, you're going to have to jimmy jam that axle nut off. It's a 36 on these guys right here. You need to really put some leverage into it, get some real gravity on her. You're also going to need to get a big piece of iron, something on these studs, so that the, can't you get it, rotate. And then you put your back into it and hope you don't send your Chinesium breaker bar flying. Oh boy, come on. Okay. Get the wheel turner, the proper application of leverage. And there you go. Excuse the background noise. My neighbor is building an ark, which I would have made fun of him for a few months ago, but at this point, you might have the right idea. Anyway, jimmy jam that bad boy off, and now it's going to be time to take your tie rods off. Now this is why it really makes a ton of sense to do these ball joints with your tie rods. The easiest way, obviously, to get tie rods off, as you all know, take the BFH and just bam, smack it right on top. But this is a family show and we're trying to not booger up any threads. I've heard of people turning the castle nut around, but for $12, for 12 American doll hairs, you can get one of these fancy little presses. Now I know we are monkeys with toolboxes on a budget, but as I said in that video a little bit ago, when you have the opportunity to buy a tool for a job, I recommend you do it. No, we can't buy all the tools all at once, but having one of these little presses around is a real big deal if you need to save your ball joints. All right, let's just slide right on there. Give her a couple, 2 steps. Come on now. There she blows. Where she stops, nobody knows. Let that guy just hang out right there. We can put the castle nut on so as not to lose it. Now those ball joints don't even have 10,000 miles on them, so obviously I didn't want to replace them now. I'm not sure that this particular puller that I got works on this big beefy boy up top. That's how they get you. See? That's how they get you. So, alright. We will revert to the more barbaric. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to put our castle nut backwards like that, with the top of the nut and the top of the stud as close as possible. Now first we're going to give a couple good whacks on the sides. And then hopefully one good one from up top. The goal here is to not booger up those threads. Now the benefit of having the castle nut on top obviously spreads out the force of the hammer, but you've got a threaded nut on there to kind of save the threads and you get it. Reestablish them. So let's do this. There we go. That's what I like to see. Alright. The puller is much more civilized, but in a pinch, that'll work just fine. Alright, now that we got this bad boy free, now's as good a time as any to remove our ABS sensor, because then we can get the line out of our way so it's not boogering up our operations. It is an 8mm right back here. Just go nice and easy on this, because you snap this off, your day is gonna suck. Alright, make sure she's down there nice and seated. Oh yeah, nice and easy, because these are down here with the mud and the blood and the beer, and they like to seize themselves right in there. Just gonna work this guy out nice and easy like. You better believe this guy's getting the spritz of the good stuff, that silver schmoo that saves every dirty Jeeper's day. Molybdenum disulfide, better known as anti-seize. Come on now, give it back. Jiminy Christmas. How long is this bolt? Oh, there she goes. So there you go. You see it's got a touch of the orange Loctite on it. That's what was keeping her in there. So, oh, it's actually jammed up in my socket here. Give it the old... There we go. Fun fact, you'll notice in the shadow here that this is the camera, this is the microphone, and this is the, that's the cord for the microphone. It's not plugged in, so if you're wondering why the audio is all fucocked, I monkeyed with a hammered amateur hour. Got to plug it in. What are you gonna do? All right, now right here is your ABS line. You gotta wiggle the sensor out of the back of the, whatever this friggin' thing is, knuckle. And then these disconnect. This one seems to be mangled beyond repair. Totally foobarred. Just sort of roll this guy out, hopefully without breaking this bracket. And then this whole thing tucks up out of the way. Now, holding these wheel bearings to these knuckles are 3 12-point bolts. My entire life I've been using a 1/2 inch. And it's always been a little tight. And for some reason the monkey with the toolbox in me never thought maybe it's metric. Well, Project Dan was nice enough to not only educate me on the issue, to buy me a 12-point 13mm. So today, look how easy that slides right on. And I actually already cracked this one, but because I was just in here and I anti-seized everything, these are coming apart real nicely. Now here's the thing. I've broken a lot of these. I'm gonna show you why. You see as I'm turning, I don't know if you can see it on camera, all the dust and dirt that's coming out of there, falling right out of that hole. Well, there's a ton of rust that builds up on the back side of these bolts, and essentially you have to pull all that rust through. Now if it's real bad, you can try to knock it off with a wire brush beforehand, but in most cases you just sort of have to get these started, work them back and forth real easy like. And then before you put them back in, you always take them over to the wire wheel and knock that crust off. Now I had these off, you can still see the anti-seize on it. You better believe I anti-seized it up here, but it just doesn't last. That is not even 6 months, not even 10,000 miles. So you can imagine what one of these that, you know, the wheel bearings are on there 50, 60, 70,000 miles. We will take this over to the wire brush, knock that off, re-anti-seize it before we throw it all back together. Well, I tell you, I did just a terrible job with lighting today. You fine folks are just gonna have to excuse me on that one. Can't control the sun hard as I try. Now, here's another spot you're potentially in for a fight. If you have a 150,000 mile Jeep and you're working with the stock wheel bearings, as I swear to you I have seen, these are gonna be damn near welded with that that good orange Loctite, keeping this in this knuckle. Now there's a lot of things you can do. You can get an air hammer if you have one and try to pink this around. I like a chisel. All right, cold chisel. The idea here is there's a ton of surface area both on the face of this knuckle and inside the bore of the knuckle for the back side of this wheel bearing to just get so stuck on. Now I just put these in and I do believe I anti-seized them, so let's see if I can get them to turn on their own, or if I'm gonna have to persuade them a little bit. You want to, if you're gonna reuse them, avoid banging on this back face here. If you're not reusing them, just go ahead and wail on it. Have at it, Jimmy Jam, all you got. But I am reusing them because that will damage severely the inside bearing race. So you want to be working strictly on this back piece. There we go. All right, I'm gonna work this guy off and I'll bring y'all back in. There we go. Gotta keep them separated. There we go. Yeah, you can see I did anti-seize that. So that's not even 10,000 miles with anti-seize. You can only imagine. Don't lose this washer, by the way. I don't believe the new axle comes with one. Oh, and we're not putting a new axle on this side, so definitely don't lose this washer. And we're not putting a new wheel bearing on this one's totally fine, but the point I'm trying to illustrate is you can imagine how rough getting some of these off. So be prepared for a fight, but if you have enough BFHs, I suppose you could heat it. I don't know. I think you just make a big mess melting stuff long before the heat would get in there. There's so much mass here. We're going to heat some other stuff later. All right, here's the next bit of fun. There's a castle bolt with a cotter pin here for this ball joint, and a castle bolt with a cotter pin down here for this ball joint. Unless you have got some from the south, never been driven in the water miracle Jeep, the cotter pin on the bottom is just going to be gone. Don't even worry about it. The center's still in there, but you're just going to power through it. I suggest for the top, don't try to fish that cotter pin out. This thing's down in the mud and the blood and the beer and the salt and the sarsaparilla, and it's just getting absolutely jimmy jammed in there. Just go ahead and break the ends off. I use a 23 mil socket to just slide it over, and you're essentially just going to just power through the what's left of the cotter pin in there. There it is, and we've already overcome the cotter pin at this point. It sort of just gets mutilated in the threads there. You can probably switch to the clicky clacker. There we go. Alright, slide that guy off. Take this little bracket for the ABS thing and put that aside. Now down below, you're talking about 1.125", 23 up top, 1.125" down below. Down below is going to be real crusty. But get your jimmy jammer on there, maybe persuade it. A couple love taps. The love tap. Oh, please. There we go, just like that. Never stood a chance. Of course, impact gun makes this real easy, but as usual, what are the two things I never have when I start these projects? An impact gun and a friend. As Eric points out, it's because I'm just too damn impatient. Up the hill from my house, I have both of those. Eric is a friend with an impact gun, but you know, I don't like bothering a guy, so we work solo. And we just struggle it out. Now, of course, you can employ PB Blaster throughout this whole project. I don't find there's a ton of stuff that helps with. One thing it will help with, if you have a really badly seized on, got that orange Loctite coming out of there. If you have a really seized on wheel bearing and you're starting to get a little crack, spray this stuff down up in here. That'll help you sometimes, for sure. But as for these guys, just got to rustle through it. Now, ooh, that little sucker's hot. We're going to have to bang this knuckle off. What you want to do is put your top castle nut on a few threads to catch it. Get back here, little guy. Don't, however, stop a few threads early. Make sure you take it all the way off so that you break all the rusty, crusty, dusty stuff off. Then put it back on a few threads, because if you try to just leave it without first taking it off, once this bond is broken, the whole post is going to rotate. Whole big mess. You're going to have to get the grinders, sawzalls. So this is where I like to employ some heat. Now, if you watch that junkyard video where Eric and I pulled knuckles for Project Dan, we had to just beat the ever-living you-know-what out of them because we didn't have any of the good stuff. Old heat miser over here. So we're not going to go crazy with it. I'm just going to put some right in here where the post from the ball joint is into the knuckle, and the same thing on the bottom. And then there's a little boss right here. You can probably see that's there. It's designed to take a BFH. All right, gives you point. You hit right there. I don't know, it does something. Hits everything perfectly, and they'll pop right off. Now we're going to want to keep our, we don't want to melt our brake lines or our ABS line. So ABS over there, brake line, well, we'll just be mindful. Let's see if that's good enough. I call it a good day if these come off in 5 or less whacks. All right, we'll get a nice good purchase on our BFH here. Oh, dang it, lost our caliper. That one's on me. I went with the cheap bungee cord. All right, that should be a little better. Try again. All right, these are going to be difficult, apparently. what was that, about 7? I'll take 7. And now we can very easily, why is there grease everywhere? Oh no. Now we can very easily remove this guy. And we have freed our knuckle, which we'll clean up on the wire wheel later. Alright, this is pretty much how you want to have it set up to press the first one out. You want a solid cup at the bottom, pressing up on the post into a cup here that gives you enough clearance. I'm not going to pretend it's not going to give you a fight, but just have to go for it. Now for all of these, go until you feel some real serious resistance here, and then give the knuckle a few whacks. And then you should be able to move through. Yeah, that loosened it up a little bit. Couple whacks. Oh, I think we might have broke loose now. Is that it? Yeah, that's all she wrote. I was gonna say, you'll hit the wall and it feels like something's wrong. Give that knuckle a few good whacks. Bring it right around. But this guy's finito. Say we got him. One upper ball joint. Nice and crusty. Super greasy. Alright, bottoms are real easy. You're gonna have the top of the press pushing directly on the ball joint here. This cup is hollow, this thing is hollow, and the bottom of this is hollow, so the post is going to be sticking out right there. I find these pop out pretty easy for whatever reason, comparatively, and there's room to use a breaker bar on it, if you're so inclined. Like I said, you hit a point where you're like, man, that really doesn't feel right. Take the BFH in there. What that does is the tension, combined with the shock, obviously, gets it ready to just bust right loose. Before you try to jimmy jam the new ones back in, you're going to want to give this the old wire toothbrush routine. Make sure you get all the orange Loctite you can out of there. It's going to make it a lot smoother going in. Maybe some light sandpaper. No big deal. That is good enough for government work. Now, these Mevlotech units I got are multi-purpose. They come with a clip ring. You don't need them for this application. They also have this fancy little dome thing so that you can take the boot off to press it in, and then you put the boot over it and you smack it with a hammer or something. I don't know. We'll see in a minute. But for this bottom one, you do need to take the boot off because we need to press along this edge right there. Alright, so we find something for the bottom. I'm thinking this guy, yep, that'll perfectly sit right on there. I'm going to use this. Perfect. Then the post isn't in the way, and up top, I think this guy will receive that. That makes sense? Alrighty, now, same idea as pressing them out. Just going the opposite way now. These bottoms I find come out and go in super easy. It is just not the case with the tops. You can see these are pressing in real nice. You want to keep an eye, make sure they're going in straight. It's not a problem on the bottom all the time, but on the top, it's a very big problem. Kind of just jimmy jam those bad boys on in there, nice and slow, nice and easy like. And these are real simple. At a certain point, that shoulder is up there. That's just all there is. Alrighty, friends, here's what the big deal with jimmy jamming Dana 30 upper front ball joints is. As you'll probably be able to notice right here, this is all lined up straight, but there's a gap right here. All right, now some kits, like the one you get from the auto parts store, has a slanted cup. All the ones you can buy on the market are like $300, $400, $500. I was trying to do this on a budget. Now, here's the catch though. I've always been able to get it right, taking up that slack with a screwdriver. Now the key is, you gotta watch your distances all the way around. It takes a little bit to get the screwdriver in just the right place, but it can be done. Now to compound this issue, this top one, you see it's got, I don't know what you'd call them, not splines, ribs, amateur hour, whatever the frig they are. And they are going against the casting machine marks inside of here. So getting these things in, man, is tight. I'm not gonna lie to you, and I hate it. I hate it every dang time, but if you take your time, it's totally doable. The key is when you start off, if you start off and you're not totally straight, just stop. It's not gonna straighten out later, it's just gonna get worse as you go. Now, on your first pulls, you can probably use a screwdriver to straighten yourself out. This one's looking pretty straight so far, so I say we give her the beans, hope for the best. Alrighty, I had to do a little bit of song and dance, had to switch out. I never use the same screwdriver twice. I don't know why. It never seems, the one I used last time never works this time. But I got the right screwdriver. We're pressing in nice and even. Here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna be tightening it down. You're gonna hit a point where tons of resistance. I'd say that's about it. You're gonna take the BFH, trusty BFH, and give it a couple good wraps. It's gonna shake everything down. Make sure you're keeping your screwdriver in there, and then you'll find that the pressure's released a bit, and you can more easily twist it. And you just keep doing that until you pop your screwdriver out. Like I said, amateur hour. Jiminy Christmas! Guy came out of nowhere. It occurs to me that I forgot one very important thing. Support the body, let the axle drop. It's got a little more room, a little more head space. Oh boy, for crying out loud, Terry, I tell you. Come on, give it back. That's it. You got her pressed all the way to the top. Go ahead and release the dragons here. Come on, give it back. There it is. Just needed proper application of leverage. All right. Now there aren't a ton of tips from here on out. Sort of just putting everything back together. Loud. Oh, the way you found it. Of course, you want to anti-seize everything, because good chance the jerk off that's going to be in here next time is you. Where'd that boot go? Oh shucks, lost my boots. There it is. She was hiding. No matter. Now, like I said, these Mevotech joints, they let you take the boot off so you don't risk damaging it. To put that back on, just get it up there and take, I guess we'll use the BFH. Lets you beat her on there in proper fashion. Now, go ahead and take your knuckle. I took mine over to the wire wheel to get the face and this bevel, and then just take your mechanic's toothbrush there. Get the big chunks off, you'll be fine. Big chunks, maybe some 100 grit. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff. Like new. Get her, make sure your brake line's on the proper side. I have done that before. Slide to the left, slide to the right, crisscross, get them finger tight for now. You're in pretty good shape. There's really nothing else I can say. Anything else I said here would just be for the sake of making this video longer, and I just wouldn't do that to you fine folks. So, we're going to put our wheel bearing back on. We're going to anti-seize everything. That good stuff. I guess we'll reattach the brakes, why not? For those of you who are wondering about how the Raybestos are treating me, I did that video, I don't know, whenever I did it, and it was to solve an issue where I was constantly warping front rotors. A lot of you told me a lot of things that basically meant that I'm an idiot. They may still be true, but for the time being, the Raybestos weird wavy jams fixed it. The last thing I have to do on the front end of this is upper control arms, way up in there. We will get to that, but that'll be a several video. Jiminy Christmas today. It's the heat. And when I did the other side, this video was supposed to come to you guys a week ago. Ended up falling, gave myself 7 stitches, so I couldn't. It's a long story. Where is it? You know what? It's better if I don't explain how it happened. Let's just say I was given all the business on the upper ball joint, and I slipped and I got tangled in things and something bit me. 7 stitches. Lost the second half of the day. Anyway, the point is, I hope I gave you some good little tips and tricks here. If you got any questions, by all means, comment down in the squawk boxes. There are probably a million other ways to do this. I'd love to know how you do it so that next time, hey, maybe I can do it a little easier, you know what I'm saying? Leave that comment down in the squawk box. Go over to Etsy. We got all kinds of cool stuff there. Eric and I pretty much opened our own print shop. in the basement of the house here. And we're adding things on there. So if you'd like to support the channel, get some Dini or other related Jeep Monkey with a Toolbox type merch, that'll be the spot to check out. Link down there. Let me comment down in the squawk boxes. I need to get a drink. It's like 85 degrees, 85% humidity. There's a lot of atmosphere is what I'm getting at. It's thick. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching. See you next time.